Hello and welcome to this episode of the Corporate Escapists TV show and podcast. I am your host, Christine Innes, and I am so delighted to have the very beautiful Tracey joining us. Welcome, beautiful.
Thank you, Christine. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm excited because we've got so much to talk about. But before I get carried away, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself, and then we're going to dive into some amazing conversation.
All right, I'm Tracey Chapman and I live in the beautiful Perth, Western Australia. So I've actually got a program that I call Thrive After Grief. And I work as a resilience and transformation coach with people that are struggling any form of grief, and they're really struggling in finding what their life actually is now because they've been hit so hard by a loss of a loved one, a loss of a body, ill health, whatever. So I really help people transform and find that meaning and the joy again in life so that they really thrive and live a blessed life.
Yeah. And you are also a #1 Amazon bestseller as well. So you were in our book last year called A Resilient Life, which I thought was just so fitting for you. And, you shared your beautiful story to really empower, but also inspire people as well. And I'm so grateful that you chose us to share your story with the world. And, as I said, to really help empower, because I really think, after grief, you step into some sort of empowerment after you go through all the different stages as well.
You do actually, and because of the work that I've been doing, I've been selected by Brains magazine as one of their executive contributors. So I write articles for them on the topic of healing, grief, and really what life is all about. So I absolutely love what I do, and that was I'm very proud to be one of their executive contributors for the Brain magazine, as well as being a 2 times best-selling author.
Yes, amazing. And, when you're working with people, and obviously it's such a sensitive topic as well when we talk about grief, and a lot of people either run towards getting help and support, or other people, I guess, sort of shy away because it is still a taboo topic to talk about.
It's a very taboo topic, but I think why it's such a taboo topic, people don't know how to talk to someone who is experiencing grief, and the person that is going through the grief, they either can't stop talking about it or they shut down because they don't want to be constantly talking about it. So it's a double-edged sword. They don't know who to talk to. You go to therapists and that side of it. But personally, for myself, I found that therapy kept me in my grief. And that's why I say it can be a double-edged sword. You don't know who to turn to. So there's not really a lot of avenues out there, whereas I empower people to move beyond that pain, that story, and really create a life that they're really going to thrive in now for the rest of their life.
Yeah, because it is like, I know your experience, quite well, but anybody who, I guess, like trying to talk to somebody who has gone, who is grieving at the process, what are some of the things that you would, you know, I guess, suggest? Because there's multiple different ways to do it, but how can you approach somebody that is in that, grieving stage as well?
It's holding space for them, and it really does come down to the grief that they have experienced and the depth of that grief. And why I say that is because I didn't share my story, which was, well, twofold actually, was losing my younger son to suicide. And for a mother, that was the most extraordinary pain that you could go through. So the depth of that pain was really, 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 really hard to overcome, but it was allowing and holding space for that pain and all those depths of those pain, but also allowing that person to dive into that pain. They have to be ready and open for it, But until you dive into that pain and allow it to come through the body in the way that it needs to come through, you don't heal. So you can't move beyond and out of that pain. So it's allowing, and what I do with my clients is allowing that space for them to really emotionally deal with it, with no judgment, no pushing, no saying, oh, well, why don't you feel this way or feel that way? Because everyone's grief is so individual and so personal, but it's allowing them that space to really feel that pain and then move forward. And it really does depend on the depth and the level of that pain for that person to allow the healing. Because we never move beyond, we never move. People say move forward. You do move forward. And people say bounce back. But I say bounce forward. And that's what the resilient life was always about, is bouncing forward, but allowing yourself to have those emotions without trying to shove them down and feel that there's something wrong with you because you have these emotions. Because people feel guilty that there's something wrong with them.
Absolutely. Like, I'm a big believer, and this is where we really connected, that first of all, you need to feel in order to heal. And I think the more you feel all the range of emotions, and, as somebody who is an empath as well, like, I can be happy, sad within 5 minutes of another, and I think that's also with grief, like, when my dad passed away, like, you'd feel happy, because he's no longer in pain, but then you're feeling the sadness because you've lost somebody. There's a lot of different things that go through that sort of process. And as yourself, like, with what you've also had to, I guess, move for, and actually experience all of the emotions in order for you to really heal, to be able to start sharing the story to help other people.
That's true, Christine, because at the very beginning, I just didn't want to face or touch on my emotions because I would just shove it down into my Pandora's box, because I felt that if I did feel my feelings, I didn't know if I could put myself back together again, because it was so deep. It was so raw when my son passed, because it was just completely out of character for him. And I just didn't think I could put myself back together. I was sort of thinking, why go on? Because everything in my life just completely changed. So I had to say to myself, well, okay, do I want to live and honor him, or do I want to stay stuck in this place where I was? And I didn't want to stay stuck there, because it wasn't fair on my husband, my other son, my fur babies, or anyone else. So I had to allow myself, and I went through it with coaching, and that's why now I've become a coach, is I had to allow personally to feel those feelings. And I cried, I screamed, got angry, but I had to allow every single emotion to rise up through me. And when I was going through it, I thought it was going to break apart. I really did, because that was so traumatic for me. But I had to do it to heal. And now I'm so glad I had the guidance and my beautiful coach at that time to take me through that. But grief doesn't just come from losing a loved one, it comes from other things as well. So, like I said before, and we're talking about grief on the loss of a loved one, but my coaching is all about that identity of self when you're going through grief, because you feel like you've lost that life you had, and you're trying to put your life together. Because just before my son passed, I'm a big cyclist, huge exercise person, and I do long kilometres on the bike. And on an early Saturday morning, on my bike ride, winter morning, I was hit by a car very badly. And my legs just took the whole impact of that accident. And I'm lucky to be alive. I really shouldn't be alive, but I have that accident and that moment just took how I saw myself as an athlete, because I can't do what I used to do. So I've had to really readjust and reassess, well, okay, I'm still alive. I've taken a lot to be able to get myself walking and walking okay, and that side of it again. So that's another twofold of what grief is all about. I lost my identity of, well, what my life was, out cycling, out running. I've really struggled in these years to rebuild myself, but also who am I now? Because I can't do those things. So living in that past of not being able to do those things, it was, well, I have to change. I have to change. Well, okay, what's going to bring me that joy and that happiness now? So I was grieving for what I had in my body as an athlete and what I could actually do. So I've had to really readjust myself. And then, not long after that, I lost my son. So I was double whammied into a different life.
Yeah. And I like the part that you talk about the identity, because I can definitely relate to that, because my experience, obviously, from, my not so gracious exit from corporate, was my identity was my career. And not having that corporate title, I lost my identity. And then also my son was, in his late teens, turning into an adult. So I was no longer, responsible for raising a human being. He was out doing his own, journey. So that identity crisis that, I think a lot of people go through, that is really grieving the old part of you. And like you're saying, learning who are you now without having, I guess, those titles associated to yourself.
That is so true. And what I have learned through my grieving processes, because they're both very, very different, was that I was basing who I am, Tracey, on my external. So my being an athlete, being a mother to two boys, being a provider to my two boys. But because I was always looking externally to my value and who I was, that was ripped away from me in a blink of an eye, just one moment, it was gone. So I'm really in my process of my healing and trying to find my way forward. So all the research I did when I really wanted to put myself back together, I've realized that who you are is not external. Who you are is internal. So when you come back to all your values, who you are, what you love, what you value in life, how you want to live your life, that's who you are, and that's what you bring to the table. What you have, and like you were saying, Christine, your corporate world, I was the same too in my corporate world, but that's something external to you. But what do you bring to the table of yourself to that corporate world? That can't get ripped away from you, because you're with yourself every single day. You can't rip that away. So I guide people and I coach people to come back internally and really connect to themselves and the value they have around themselves, because you can't rip that away. That can't get taken in a moment.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I think a lot of people, underestimate the power of values. Like for people I know that have been following me, they know that I preach about values. I think it's a game changer for absolutely everybody, and knowing what your values are, but also allowing your values to change, because with every moment, with every experience, even conversations, our values can change as well, because we change as human beings.
Yeah, that is so true, Christine, because what I valued way back when I was, say, 14, 15, 30s, 40s, 50s, because I'm now in my 60s. So what I value in my life now is very, very different to what I valued then. So it's allowing and always looking, are they still my values, or do I need to adjust my values? Because they will always keep changing as you evolve and as you go through life. They're not a one and done thing. A little bit as your purpose isn't a one and done thing.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. Do you want to explain to people what it's like working with you, sort of, how your process runs? Is it one-on-one? Is it group? How the program works?
I really like the one-on-one with what I do, because that person really needs that one-on-one. But then they can go into, a group, and that's where, people, you do learn from other people's healings and processes and all the rest of it, but really to help that person. I like the one-on-one because I can really work with them. I can really hold that space for them, for that healing that they actually need. So I do both.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, everybody's process is so different, and
So different.
the journey. And I think that's one of the biggest things that, people, everyone goes, oh, there's the 7 stages of grief, but you might go through stage 1 to 5 and then back to 2 and all over the different place with it. There's not one set process that you're actually going to move through.
Yes, I don't even talk about what they say,
Yeah.
That's the norm, the 7 pages of grief. I don't even touch on that. So I look at it that it's like, it's like an onion. You're not going to bite into an onion like an apple and just really enjoy it, are you? Because an onion's not that tasty, but your healing, your pain's not that tasty either. So I look at it, we've got to peel like the onion. When you're going to eat an onion, you eat it in bite-sized pieces because you've chopped it up. So I look at it as peeling the outside of the onion and slowly peeling all those layers to getting to the very core of that onion. And that's where your power is and your involvement is and your healing is. And that's when you're able to move forward with so much grace and with so much connection to who you are, so that you can really know who you are and love life again and really honor that life that you used to have, because you're so much more powerful and so much more connected to who you are.
Yeah, definitely. Because a lot of people see, I call them moments in life, and because we have ups and downs all the time, but your journey and how you reflect back on that can really help alter your perspective, but also alter who you are as well.
It does, and it's being not scared to actually do that. But as a coach, you hold that person's space so that they can do that, and might guide them in. It's, well, who's living your life?
Yes.
Your friends aren't living your life. Your husband,
Yeah.
partner, children, no one's living your life for you. You're living your life. So
Yeah.
how do you want to live that life? It's not all that external. And if you keep trying to look for the external validation, well, you're still never going to have that connection and living true to yourself. And I always say you're put on this planet for one reason. Don't get to the end of your life when you haven't played your music. You've got to play your music while you're still here. That's why you're here, and that's why you were put on the planet. Tomorrow is not a promised. Today
Mm.
is a promise. This moment, this now is promise. So it's no good thinking, oh, I can do all that tomorrow, because like my son, his
Yeah.
tomorrow did not come. So it is in this moment where we live our life and really valuing that. And I think that is something I have really learned, especially when I was hit by the car when I was cycling. That was horrific. That was so awful. I just said goodbye. I said goodbye to my husband. I said goodbye to my son. I just said, I said goodbye because I thought I was gone.
Yeah.
And I really now appreciate what life is. So it's
Yeah.
living in every day and making the most of every day. We have our ups and downs. That's emotions. That's part of it. But I give people the tools to be able to work actually through that.
Absolutely. Well, I think you're an absolute beautiful human being, and what you do is so needed in this world because everybody experiences a level of grief, and to be able to hold that beautiful sacred space for people, I think is a very precious thing that you do. What is next for you in, obviously you've written a book, you're doing the coaching. What's next for Tracey?
I've always, well, it's taken me a little while to want to get to that next stage. And I've always thought of speaking like on stage. So that's my next avenue. I'm still doing what I'm doing with my coaching, and whether I'll write another book, because I've done 2 now. Um, I've actually been asked to speak at a mental health transformation conference in Miami. And when they first asked me, it's in July, I said, look, unfortunately, I can't travel that far because of my other commitments. But they came back to me and said, we really want you to be one of our speakers. So they've allowed and opened a spot for me to do that virtually. So I'll be speaking on stage. So that'll be my next step in my journey. Because as I speak about it, that's also a healing process for me too. It's something you never get over, losing a son.
No,
Due to suicide.
no. And what was the process like writing the book and actually putting it on pen to paper, you know, and actually sharing, not just to yourself, you know, you're sharing this to the world now. What was that experience like for you?
It was something I really had to want to do, because I had to be prepared. For me, if I was going to write it, I had to sort of open up to my feelings, my emotions, and what happened on that horrid day. And I thought, well, I have to be open and honest with that. But that was also a healing process for me as well. So that was also helping peel back more layers of that onion, because hearing that news on that day from the police that they had found my son and he was deceased, I just screamed and screamed and screamed. And you would have thought it was this wild animal, because I just was so torn apart. But in writing that in the book, that helped bring that up also as well, because I was shoving that down. I wasn't allowing that moment in time to come up, because it was just so emotional. As a mother, because a mother, you hold your children in your womb and then you give birth to them and you have that umbilical cord, you're connected in so many ways. And that was just ripped from me when my son passed. So it allowed me to also another healing part of my journey, which I needed to do.
Yeah, I do. I do find writing is a very therapeutic, you know, for myself. So I can completely relate to that as well.
Yes.
Like I said, I really think what you're doing is a true gift, with it, to be able to not only use your personal experience, but now to help other people. And I do truly believe what you're doing is empowering other people, because you really give them the ability to take back that power again and to, I guess, you know, really transform their lives to what they now can, you know, I guess, see again. Because a lot of times when you're in that grief process, you feel stuck, but also too you can't see past what's to come.
No, it's like living in this fog. You're living in this black tunnel and you see this tiny little speck of light up there. But that light, as you try to keep moving forward, it just keeps moving forward as well.
Yeah.
So it's like driving the car and you're constantly looking in that rear view mirror. And until you start looking ahead, you can't see clearly. So
Yeah.
it's taking that foot off the brake and allowing yourself to go through all those emotions. It's not an easy process, but I really guide my clients that I'm here for you. You know, we can
Yeah.
do this. You can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we go, I'm going to ask you just 5 very random questions. This is just so people can get to know you a little bit better. So, first question is, do you prefer tea or coffee in the morning?
I have my coffee.
Yes. Do you prefer the beach or the country?
I live right next to the beach, so I love the beach.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you prefer to curl up with a book or watch a movie?
A book.
Hmm. And would you prefer, if you're going on a holiday destination, to travel by boat or plane?
By plane. I want to get there quick. Boat's too
Yes.
slow.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And if you could host a dinner party and invite anybody from the past or the present, who would that be?
From the past or the present, I'd have my family. So I'd have my
Yeah,
2 sons, my husband, and my 2 fur babies.
I love it. It would be a beautiful, beautiful dinner party. I just want to say thank you so much to you for sharing your gifts in the book. We're going to put all the details below, and also, you know, for helping so many people to really thrive like after grief as well. So thank you so much, Tracey, for being here today.
Thank you, Christine, and thanks for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you, and thank you everyone as well. So I say with grief, grief is not one thing. You can thrive after grief, but it takes work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you to everyone who is watching this episode. If you have liked it, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button below. If you've got any questions, pop them below, and to remember to live life to the fullest every single day. Love and light to you all.
Yes, thank you.